Welcome to DucBloke Tuning and Finding the Sweet Spot. Grab a cup of coffee and like and subscribe.
And welcome back to DucBloke Tuning, Finding the Sweet Spot. Today we have a departure from the norm of testing and tuning IEMs. I own 4 headphones. Don't use them very often, but I do own headphones. And I thought I'd show everyone how the same tuning process that I use for IEMs can be applied to headphones as well, and with significant results. So I grabbed my Audeze LCD-XC. So these are a closed back carbon fiber can headphone. I've got them just here. There they are. And I'll put up a video so that you guys can see this a little bit better. And you can see around these headphones, they're quite stunning. And I'm able to tune these in a very similar way using a PEQ array to get the sweet spot, to find the best setting for these headphones. And with that, let's get stuck into what's in the box. You get the headphones with the cable. The cable is a mini XLR cable with a 6.35 millimeter plug, and it comes with a hard case that could probably withstand a nuclear war. It's quite a strong case. Let's look inside the case. This is the case. I've got it under the desk here, but you're looking inside it. So the headphone's loaded into the case. You've got a lot of foam to protect it. You've got a spot for the cable, and then the headphones are quite secure inside the case. Let's talk a little bit about the specifications. These headphones are capable of handling 5 watts of power. So quite a big amount of power as compared to an IEM. Probably between 5 and 10 times more power than what an IEM is used to handling. It says that it's a minimum of 100 milliwatts. I don't think they would sound good on a sound source that was that low when you apply the PEQ setting. We'll get into why that is. But the recommended power is greater than 250 milliwatts. I'm going to say it's closer to a watt. If you're going to use my PEQ, make sure you've got a sound source that is pumping out at least a watt of power. These are very heavy headphones. These weigh about 1.4 pounds. So they're quite heavy. They're quite large as well. They are quite audacious, but I love carbon fiber. I think the look of these is quite stunning. What did I use to drive them? And this is why I brought up about having a sound source that has enough power. I usually use my Basso DX 320 Max TI, which has about 1.1 watt of power, and it has a balanced 4.4 output. I jumped over to my FIO M17 for this test, because if you carry this unplugged, it puts out 1.5 watts of power. So it's got about 0.4 watts more power than the DX320. But it also can pump out twice as much power, so 3 watts of power, and it has a direct 6.35 plug as well. So you can take the headphone without having to use an adapter and go straight into it. The biggest thing was that I was able to run 3 times as much power when this thing is plugged into the wall. It works as like a DAC instead of a DAP. You plug it in and it's really like a desktop DAC. I also used my K19, which is over here, because it can run 5 watts of power, and it sounded quite good with my aggressive PEQ setting. Let's talk about how aggressive this really was. So you can see on the screen here, power amp. The first setting at 20 hertz, I had a gain of 12 dB. And then the second setting, you can see it here, there's the 12 dB at 20. At 42 hertz, I had another gain of 8.8 dB and a Q value of 0.5, which means it was quite wide. The reason I did that, so that I could elevate this, get ready, 19 dB off the standard in the sub bass and bass region. I'll show you the graphs here in just a moment, but it was really, really an aggressive tuning. But man, do they sound good once you apply this tuning to them. This is the Squig out of the box. You can see this is against the 5128 target, and it is quite low. It is 10 dB below that. The 5128 target, I usually elevate above this about 6 or 7 dB on my IEM. So you can see why I had to add so much to this. And it was also a little bit shouty out of the box, and you can see why as well, because there's some real treble elevation, some peaks in the treble, especially around the 2K, 3K region, where that's elevated, and it brings in a little bit of vocal shoutiness into that signature. What I did to it, in the first 30 song listen that I do, I use the M17. Where I thought it started was a -1 in my bass chart. I had to actually create another level because it had so little bass. And where I think it went is 5 steps up, and I thought it went from a bright 4 to a bright 3. So I cooled it down a little bit in its brightness, and I elevated its bass significantly. But I found one PEQ setting that really worked well for many of the 30 songs, which meant that this is going to be a very pleasant setting across a broad spectrum of music. This is the K19 DSP software. It only works with the K19, and you can see the final tuning that I did. What I did here is there were two regions that had peaks in them that were significant, right around 4K and again here at about 9K. I grabbed the 6K region because I was hearing a little bit of sibilance. I grabbed the 6K region, you just grab the dot, and I pulled that down, and it brought this whole thing down slightly until I heard the sibilance go away. So that was the final tuning step in this. But you can see the elevation here was so high, that's the 12 dB mark, that it's off the chart. It's off the graph, but this does accept it. You just can't see it. This was an extremely aggressive tuning. This is what I wound up with. Blue line, where you can see I've elevated it by 19 dB in the bass region. I've then glided that down at about 300 hertz. Pina gain was a little bit later than the headphone out of the box. I filled in some of the gaps in these valleys, and then I extended the treble out and then tuned it at that 15,000 hertz with a very wide Q value to tilt it to get it to do the final tuning and make this thing absolutely sparkle, but not be sibilant, have clear vocals, and awesome bass. Here's what I wound up with. So it went from a 7.84 out of the box, where it was very thin in its bass, it had very thin note weight and slam. It had halfway decent soundstage and treble and detail and layering. It had okay sibilance and timbre and tonality and texture, but after the PEQ settings were applied, everything went up. In fact, the bass slammed. It became about a 10 out of 10 in the sub bass and the bass feel was quite good, about a 9 point, I think it's about 9.7. You'll see it in the next graph. The masking went up to a 10. The note weight slam went up to almost a 10. Sibilance got better. Everything got better because I added such an aggressive PEQ to this. Remember, planars are very fast drivers, and this is a big planar driver that is in the set. One planar on each side, but it's not very textured. If you want to add more texture to it, I tend to like more drivers. That's why I like IEMs. They add a lot more texture to it because you have more drivers singing at the same time, if you will. This is a single driver, but it does very well. This is the bar graph, everything side by side, all 17 parameters plus the final ranking. You can see the elevation. This is the graph, by the way, the scale is 5 out of 10. You start at about a 7 here, and you're able to get this up almost to a 10 on all the parameters that are related to bass. Same thing with note weight and slam, because they are directly related to bass as well. This elevates quite a lot in this region, but you can see everything went up. Sounds great after PEQ only. A lot of reviews have said this, so I'm not the first. It is an excellent headphone if you do PEQ. If you have this headphone and you haven't PEQ'd it, contact me. That's what this channel's all about, helping out the hobby. I will send you the PEQ settings, but you have to have a strong source. You have to have something, I believe, that is above 1 watt of power in order to drive these. So it's not really a DAP friendly unless you have a really big DAP, like again, an M17 or an M15, or you have one of the bigger Ibesos. Really a desktop DAC that's able to really drive this well would be ideal. My method works on not only IMs, but on headphones. Not that I'm going to be doing a lot of headphones. I only own 4. I might do another one further on down the road, kick it down the road. Just wanted to show the community that this works. And if you like what you're seeing, subscribe. Hit the like button. Give me a comment. I'd love to hear comments back. Give me some feedback. So far, the channel's growing well. Really appreciate it. Sunday night, DucBloke out.
Thank you for visiting DucBloke Tuning and finding the sweet spot. Your comments are very much appreciated. I'll try to respond as quickly as possible. Share the PEQ settings with you if you own these particular IEMs or if you plan on purchasing them to maximize your investment. Again, thank you so much for supporting the project.